Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is a professional goalkeeper for the Major Arena Soccer League's Milwaukee Wave. He's already a league veteran at age 29, having also spent time on the Harrisburg Heat, and he's currently leading the charts in total saves. Best of all, we're both graduates of Brighton High School. Shout out 585. Please welcome Will the Wall Banahene.
We're live.
Willie B, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us from Milwaukee.
How you doing? Actually, I think you're the first Brighton guy to ever call me Willie B. So,
jeez, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I'll stick with Will for the rest of the interview.
No, you can do whatever you need.
That's cool. So I know you're only a few games into this season, but tell us about your time in Milwaukee so far. Obviously, you were with them all of last season, but what's the change of scenery been like all the way from Harrisburg?
It's definitely different. 100% different. The environment's different. This is a team that's won a lot of championships. It's actually the oldest professional assistant running professional soccer team in America, so they have the history. Not to say anything about Harrisburg. They're an old club as well. But this has a proven winner. So the mentality was just different, right? Figuring it out in Harrisburg, and now it's the expectation is to win. So it's been good. I love my time here. I actually decided to move full time out here. I usually just live 6 months in one place and then go back home to Rochester. But decided, why don't I? I'm not getting any younger, and it's not fun packing all your stuff up and driving 10 hours back home. So I was like, let me just make it. Milwaukee's a sports city, right? You have the Bucks, you have the Green Bay an hour away, you have the Brewers and Emeralds, Marquette, us. It's actually funny. Every Milwaukee team won its regular season championship.
Oh wow!
No championships to show for it, but last year we won. The Brewers won their division. Bucks won their division. Emeralds won their division, and Marquette did really well as well. So it's a sports city, so it's really fun to be around in this area.
That's awesome. And before we kind of jump into all things footy, soccer, whichever, what keeps you busy during the off season? It sounds like sports. Do you get to attend any of the other teams' games, or?
I'm back home in Rochester. I run camps in our hometown, and I started a youth club out there too. So June, July, I'm out there coaching a lot. I'm trying to golf, but I'm not very good. So, but I've been to a couple Bucks games, and been to trying to get to a Brewers game. I actually haven't been to an MLB game, so I'm trying to explore all that.
That's pretty sweet. Tristan has actually taken an interest in the Bucks recently.
I would say I'm like a Bucks supporter. Like fan would be a pretty strong term. I'm a loose supporter, I'd say, but I have a Giannis jersey, so I'd fit in if I ever visit.
Okay.
I know
full on bandwagoner. So we
full on.
I'm a Clippers fan and I'm a Ravens fan, so I just keep quiet because everybody's Bucks and Green Bay fanatics. So I just secretly root for my teams, but you have to be somewhat of a supporter over here too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so now moving into the league, just getting your take on the league overall. How did you come across the league? And also, I'm curious to learn, were you a fan of like indoor soccer in your youth days? Is that what led you to gravitate towards the league, or?
No, I think for the most part, right, when you're a young athlete, a young soccer player here, your aspirations to make it to the MLS, I think you'd be lying to say if you weren't. I finished college soccer, and I had a weird trajectory. I went to 5 schools. Out of high school, I wasn't I wasn't the smart, or not the smartest kid. I didn't really take school seriously. I was
probably smarter than me. I was no Dean's List student myself, so.
Yeah, so I was a non-qualifier, had to go NIA, went to Niagara, then I transferred twice, had to go through this carousel, finished at Buffalo State, didn't really have a memorable season. So to me, I was kind of like, you know what, I'm just going to keep playing until they tell me I can't, right? Until somebody says I can't. Play the MPSL, which is like 4th division in America. Did really well, got 4th team all MPSL after there's 200 teams. I did really well, got invited to this combine, which was like the MLS combine, which they took the best players from that league. You got to showcase yourself. And, I just didn't get any offers. And that was kind of, to me, it was like, hey, listen, this is the closest thing that you're going to get to, for an opportunity. So I kind of just had to look myself in the mirror and said, that's kind of where my ceiling is. I was kind of actually gearing kind of towards away soccer and figuring out my life and what I wanted to do. And somebody called me and said, hey, Harrisburg has an open tryout. Do you want to go? And I kind of was like, you know what, I'll go for 2 weeks at the bars. I can tell girls that, hey, I'm going to a tryout, but I ended up signing a 4-year deal. And then the kind of rest was history. I knew that I've been to a couple Rochester Lancer games back in the day. So I was somewhat familiar with it. And the beauty of the indoor game, I always tell young players, there's no prerequisite. So it's not like you were at this academy or you're playing here or you played this Division One. I remember when I was in the tryout with at Harrisburg, there was Pittsburgh Riverhound goalkeepers, there's USL goalkeepers, USL players, and it's just a completely different game. So the notion is, you play indoor because you can't play outdoor. It's just a different game. Right? We have some guys who go in and, we had a guy who played, I think he's with the Loyal now, but he left his US or MASL team and went straight to LA Galaxy, or it was LAFC, and then went to DC United. So it goes both ways. Some players are just not great outdoor players, and some outdoor players aren't great indoor players. Mm-hmm. But there is a correlation. So so that's kind of my story with the indoor game, and I've loved it. I love the game. It's just such a fun game, especially if you're not a through and through purist.
Right. So Will, your tryout with Harrisburg, was that the first time you had played competitive indoor soccer?
Yes. So when I left Niagara, I was 18. I actually tried out for 2 teams. I tried out for Harrisburg and I tried out for Rochester, and I didn't make either of them. So I had like a week 5 years prior, but I wasn't really training or anything with that. So.
And directing back to the league, I myself am fascinated. I have been fascinated by it for a few seasons now. I was at a Lancers game before that folded a couple years ago. Obviously it was a tough start for them, but I was immediately sort of like enamored with the style of play. I'm sure, like you brought up purists before, I'm sure they might take some issue with the way that the game is set up. But like I said, I've really been fascinated by it, and the thing I'm most excited to ask you about is the adjustments you had to make from outdoor to indoor, just because all the ins and outs and the rule changes. And like I was watching some highlights today, and when guys take set pieces, they're like standing over the ball while players are moving around. You can kick the ball off of the boards and create like a almost give yourself a corner, like a cutback situation. What was that like when you were first out there taking shots like that?
Yeah, it was completely different, right? As a goalkeeper, right? The ball goes wide, you dive wide, you grab your water, it's a goal kick, right? Now you kind of have to say, hey, this ball is going wide. I can kind of see this ball is going wide. I'm not going to dive past it to go, may hit my head, go back in the goal, or I dive and there's a rebound and it's an open goal. So it was kind of more just knowing your surrounding, knowing the angles, kind of attacking the play a little bit. It was a huge adjustment. I always say for these guys who are out of college and haven't played at professional level, it's like double hard, because you're learning a whole new sport and you're learning how to be a professional, right? It's not like college where you go home and you play Xbox all day. Like, you're studying the game, you have to do all that stuff. And so it was a huge adjustment for me. And it took, that first year was really tough, really, really tough, because the expectation is to be ready. They don't care about your story. They don't care if you're a rookie. They're like, hey, well, no, these mistakes can't happen, right? So I remember guys were like, hey, listen, we get win bonuses, we make playoffs, that's paying our kids' bills. So you better figure it out, right? So that those are the things that you kind of just have to you learn, and you say, hey, I got to figure this out, or and that's just being kind of a nerd for it.
And the thing too, I noticed watching highlights is like 80% of the shots you see in a game are absolute cannons from 5 or 10 feet away. And I remember watching you play in high school. A huge defining part of your game was how fast you were getting back on your feet after a dive. But like you just mentioned, it's like a completely different situation. You're not going to waste a dive when, like you said, the ball could be hurtling back towards an attacking player. It really was there something in particular that you can think, like whether it's defending a corner or defending a penalty? Like what was one thing that even today maybe you still feel like you could improve a bit, if there's anything?
With my game, it's probably the feet, right? When I was growing up, I was right at that cusp where everything was long, right? You're playing the long kick, you're playing the long goal kick, and then it got to the point where you're flipping the 7 and 11s or the wingers. But now you look at goalkeepers nowadays in the outdoor game, you know, they're the first attacker. They're putting the 2, building with the 2, and then the goalkeeper, and they're expecting to play in tight areas. So I kind of missed out on that spot. So I think with my distribution is probably the biggest thing that has to improve, and is still improving. I feel more confident, but it's funny, like when I came back from Harrisburg and I went to play for the Lancers outdoor team in the MPSL, it was just so much easier. So much more space, decision making was good. And there's a huge correlation for both players, indoor and outdoor, of what there is. But yeah, I would say my distribution is probably the number one thing, and you can ask the league. It's not a secret, right? I probably have one of the worst feet in the league, but that's you win some, you lose some. So
you're bad with the feet, but Will the Wall is also not the worst nickname.
Yeah, I tend to be up there with the save percentages, so they're kind of like, hey, listen, you can't have them all. You know?
Yeah.
So,
I said in the intro, you are the current league leader in saves right now, so I did check the MASL stats page.
Yeah.
But
and has to have one of the quickest reactions I've ever seen. Like Tristan was showing me clips before this, and yes, the ability to get back to your feet, but just at point blank, how quickly you're able to get a hand on some of those balls that come through to you is absolutely insane. For our viewers, so you spoke to the goalkeeper position and some of the changes you had to make, but when it comes to tactics, a lot of our listeners envision the traditional game, and you describe as indoor soccer is completely different. But tactically and how teams set up, is there something that stands out to you as a main difference between the two styles, or is there more correlations than you think?
Yeah, I mean, you could write a book about the differences, but let me try to figure out the biggest ones. I would say that one of the hardest things for an outdoor player that I see is just like a man-to-man situation, right? You're not passing your player off. You're not really like saying, "Oh, I see him. He's right there," because it's a hard shot. It's a tap in, right? You got to wrap up with your guy, you know, and you're playing your two sides of the ball. You got to be a two-way player. So even if you're a defender, the defenders are the ones who are on the ball when you have the ball, right? Maybe a defender and a midfielder, so it's two defenders, forward, midfielder, and a target, right? And the target's usually target is similar to like a center, posting up back towards the goal, holding the ball up, laying off, seeing what they can get, and then or it's kind of that true, maybe like a winger type player. Midfielder, it's like a midfielder and defender. You have to be good on the ball, but also I would say there's a second defender and a first defender. First defender is marking the target. They're like brutes, right? It's kind of to like
body to body.
Situation. Yeah, body to body. And they're like, if you ask them, like, we're just wrestling for 60 minutes. And then you have that like defender who may be a little bit better on the ball, who can attack a little bit better. And if they get matched up with a target, then they're going past that target. So it's a chess match. So there's a lot of differences. One of my favorite things is like when I was in Harrisburg, I'd play a ball into the lane to break pressure, and it would go to the other team. And my team would say, "Hey, that's a good ball. Oh, you broke pressure. You got it, and we can press up there." And the other team said, "Hey, we did our job too." Like, you know, it's really hockey like simulate situations where it's like, hey, not every time you can just pass out of the situation. You got to kind of bump it and do that. So I like to say it's like hockey and basketball.
Yeah, it sounds like the perfect thing to watch for all the critics of soccer and those that describe it as like a slow game, because you're getting a hockey-esque feel, but also basketball, and it's just nonstop action. Ball can't die.
Yeah, so we have a buddy. So I used to live with John Bender and going back, and Robert Haggerty and Robert Haggerty. Yeah, so Robert Haggerty I came home, we're watching the playoffs, and Robert Haggerty's a lacrosse guy, and he makes a joke. He goes, "How much did they pay you guys? Hot dogs that was left over from the whatever." It pissed me off. So that's why I remember the part. But then he's watching the game, and it's like blocked, save, and it's just going back and forth, shot, blah, blah, blah. And then a goal, he's like, oh, this is actually pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because to someone who likes the action, it's a game that's like, maybe not even like, maybe if you're late to the game of soccer and don't really understand, hey, like those inverted halfbacks did this and this, and that's the beauty of it, and people love that. Someone who's kind of late to the game and likes it, this is a perfect game for you. I played basketball growing up, but soccer is pretty cool, and I love the environment. Yeah. And it's interesting for someone who's doesn't really know what's going on, can say, oh, well, I can see this guy freaking has a cannon, and this guy is super fast,
Yeah. And speaking of the hockey comparison, shed a little bit more light for me on like the line changes that happen. How many times will a guy sub in and out of a game? How does the league regulate? Like, how is that rule regulated?
Yeah, there's no subs, no sub limitation. It's like you really should not be on the field for more than 30 to 45 minutes. You're just going really quickly because it's supposed to be a sprint the whole time. So if you're on there for 2-3 minutes, I think that's one thing that also a younger inexperienced player does. Will do 1-2 shifts. My favorite thing is, and they'll do this to a rookie like early in his career, it should be offense, defense, off. Some people will do offense, defense, offense, and then try to come off. And if they try to come off, the will the door and say, you're going to go play defense again. And
Gotta break them in.
Learn, say, hey, listen, you're not just going to do the offense and not do the hard work too. So, those are little things with it, but the subs are on the fly. You usually can either sub in 2s, 3s. Sometimes we sub for 5s for 2 positions. Like our defenders may be 5s for 2 positions. It's pretty much straightforward on that. It's not really much like a line. Like I know in hockey, like there's a line and you guys all sub at the same time. You'll be going with everybody on there.
I think
that's incredible.
That's the type of player I would be conveniently subbing on as we have a fast break towards the net. And then as soon as I miss, I just run off. I'm like, all right, somebody come on.
Right.
Somebody track back for me.
You can do that. If you're a rookie, they're just saying run.
Right. Just nonstop. Oh, that's awesome. There might be nothing at all, but if there was anything you could change about indoor soccer, is there anything that you would pick?
What would I change? What would like a rule or just something?
It could be anything. It could be a rule. It could be the surface. It could be
You're like goalies should be paid double.
Like it could be that.
Get paid by the save.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I lead it. No, I would. I mean, I think the game in itself is, there's not much that's wrong with it. The only thing I would say is, and I was probably down like 7 times this weekend, but I would say to get this like if you go down injured, you got to sit 2 minutes, right? Like that would be my thing where people, because there are a lot of times where, and I'm guilty of this. Like I said, if you watch any of the games this weekend, I got hit in the face. I had to actually leave the game the first game, but I got hit in the face probably like 6 times. And I went down every time. And by the end, when I actually got like maybe a concussion, everyone was booing. We don't believe this guy anymore.
You're like, no, I mean it this time. Seriously.
Yeah, right. But I would say like, hey, to not really slow down the play or, hey, I didn't get a call and I'm just going to lay there. I would say you got to sit like 2 minutes to get your treatment. Not saying you got to be man down or anything. Just hold yourself. I think you'd see more players, either if they're hurt, work their way to the bench. In that sense. But besides the game in itself, if you watch a game, it's very, very interesting. Yeah. Most of the games are close. Even when they're not close, there's always going to be action. A lot of the people don't like each other, which is fun.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to see dirty titles. You're going to see people in each other's faces. The one thing about indoor soccer, which is a lot different than outdoor soccer, it's very, very close. The fans are very, very close. I'm getting an earful the whole game. Like they are like almost on top of you versus like outdoor soccer. Most of the time there's some things to the touchline, but like you're right on the boards and depends. Like you play Utica, man, they have this beer garden and they're all drunk and just heckling you. And it's we always say sometimes the lights are a little too bright. Not like outdoor soccer. They're close.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't really change anything in terms of the game. I think we just have to do a better job of how do we show this great sport to the masses, right?
It's funny you mentioned Utica. I'm actually headed to the Adirondack Bank Center because they're playing Baltimore Blast like a couple days before Christmas. So I'm going to go experience the beer garden myself. I'm glad you won't be in town.
This is going to be the loudest one.
Yeah. If you were in town, I'd have to heckle you the loudest.
they do not like each other. They hate each other.
Okay.
Like that will probably be a fight. That will be rowdy. That's a good game. If that's going to be one of your premier games to showcase, that too.
Tristan's gonna come back with a black eye. We're gonna be like, dude, what happened?
I had a little too much fun in the beer garden. Got a little too close to the keeper. He ended up bopping me.
Yeah, no, there's some other guys you got to worry about for them because they will get in your face.
Yeah.
And the fans probably like, this is the best thing ever. Like a player came up and told me to screw off.
Man. So Milwaukee Utica, obviously a big rivalry. What are some other like bitter rivalries around the league or teams that you also know that when you play it's going to be like a bit of a dogfight? Anybody else come to mind?
Yeah, so Milwaukee's pretty big. That one is actually bad blood. That one is like I think they limit. We usually play each other 6 times. He said this year, hey, you guys got to play each other.
Wow.
Every time we play, there's something that happens. We got a player, Derek. He always says something to the crowd. He always gets suspended off it. Like,
yeah.
So they're kind of just like, you know what? We're gonna play each other. So St. Louis or Kansas City, Milwaukee's pretty big. Baltimore and Utica has a big rivalry. Empire, which is LA, and San Diego have a pretty big rivalry. And then you got the 2 Mexican teams, Chihuahua and Monterrey, which have a rivalry as well. Then you have the historical rivalries. You have the Milwaukee, San Diego, which is like LA Celtics. And then you have like Baltimore, San Diego. So there's always going to be some historical rivalries, but then you have the rivalries where it's like we're playing each other so many times that we guys, and that's the Baltimore Utica. That's the Kansas City Milwaukee rivalry.
So, and in your time, by the way, did you ever play Landon when he was because he was in San Diego for a while, wasn't he? Did you play any big name guys?
No, did I play? I think we played when he was in the league, but he didn't play. He's like, I'm not coming to Harrisburg. He's like, he picked and choose which games he went. I think it was Harrisburg didn't make it. So, no, but yeah, when he did come, it was interesting. That was cool for us. Like, okay, well, he added some notoriety, and when people showed up, he got an extra 5,000 people.
Right. And that kind of brings me to the league-wide question as a whole. So, I mean, you're a veteran at this point in the league. This is your 6th season, correct?
Yeah.
So when you look at what this league could look like 5 or 10 years down the road, what are some things on your end that you predict might happen or that you would like to see happen? Is it maybe expansion to other cities or more stability with what we have?
I think expansion's coming, right? Ronaldinho apparently bought a team or is an owner of a team in Las Vegas that's supposed to come next season. There's another team in Mexico. You heard some teams in the East Coast as well. So it just comes down to more eyes on it. People are going to say this is pretty cool. Owners with a little bit more deep pockets that get you TV deals, which gets stuff like that. From where I started to where it is now, I think there was a lot of instability. It was always the question was who's not coming back next year? Who's coming back? Are they going to last? It was always some sort of crapshoot. But it's for the last couple of years, like you kind of just have to show that you're stable before you grow. And I think it's in the point where we're going to start seeing a lot of growth. And, you see, I saw Alexi Lalas tweet about it last 2 days ago. You're going to see more eyes on it. You're going to see a TV deal. You're going to see, I think you can see more MLS players who retire and come. I think it's in a good shape. It's stable. It's just at the point where it's how much can this grow? I think the players in itself have to do more. As you know, like social media is huge, right? You watch like Jake Paul and KSI fight. They're not fighters, right? They just have a following, right? And if you can make a following, people are going to watch and you're going to have success. So I think us as players, we just have to do a better job of saying, hey, like we have a lot of people that go viral and their tricks and their skills and whatnot. Well, watch these guys play every day. I think that would help us entirely.
Yeah, that'd be massive for sure.
So I did some internet research on you before we started. Is it true that you're a West Ham fan?
No, honestly, I'm an outdoor soccer bandwagoner. Right now, right now I'm Brighton Hove and Albion.
Okay.
And that's because we're from Brighton and I started a club called Brighton FC, that's when I stuck with that team. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, of course, when they're good, you start taking their team. I was like, no, when they were fighting regulation or relegation, I was supporting them too. So, but I was a Chelsea fan for through and through, all growing up. Then they sacked Jose Mourinho.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second time was the one I was like, I can't be, because
that's when they slid to like 10th or something like that.
Yeah, but it wasn't even that. It was just more or less like you had Eden Hazard, you had these guys who just said, you know what? And they were one of the first teams that said, if I want my manager gone, I can just stop playing.
Oh, yeah.
Or I can just, and you could tell they just stopped really caring and kind of was just like, oh, it's the manager's fault. And then they get a new manager and then everything's there. I was like, no, that's not how. If you look at like back in the day with Frank Lampard, Drogba, and Don Terry, it was like hard nosed. That's how they won it. They listened to their manager. Nobody was bigger than the game, and that was what I grew up on. And then when you started seeing these guys and are like, what are we gonna do? He lost the locker room. I don't want to play for him. It's like, that's not how life works. So I stopped becoming a Chelsea fan. I'm a big it's not the manager's fault, right? You gotta look yourself in the mirror. So.
Well, it's a wise decision to jump off the Chelsea train and onto the
See, I should have bet and put in Bitcoin too at that.
Plus, too, I mean, Brighton, that's I would never give anyone shade for supporting Brighton, because that's just a great team to support. I mean, they're still not playing like big money ball. It's still a good game. Like, everything about them is great. So, honestly, if you're going to support them, that's still the best.
Legend, and De Zerbi will call his players out right in front of the media. He definitely owns the roost.
Yeah, I was a big Leicester fan and not like a huge fan, but I was supporting them when they went on the run. And then, if you win the championship or the EPL the way you won the EPL, you should be tenured for your job for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
right. Like, he did something that will not happen in most people's lifetimes. They were 10,000-1, and he won it. I don't care if they get relegated to league football, non-league football. He's got to stay the coach. When they let him go the next year, I was like, same old thing. That was kind of when I took a step back. I was like,
supporting dude, as a Tottenham fan, I'll tell you right now, supporting any team is not worth it in the long run. Really, just love ball. Don't love an actual team. Just love the game.
Yeah, but I mean, when the Spurs finally win it in 15 years, I think you're going to be really happy with your decision. It's going to be your greatest feeling in the world. So.
I hope even my grandchildren are capable of witnessing something.
When that happens, I'm going to be blocking Tristan on everything.
Yeah, absolute nightmare to be around. So, just kind of to pivot a little bit back to Milwaukee. So you mentioned in the beginning of the interview a few new players. So tell me about what to expect this coming season for a Milwaukee Wave fan. I guess what can they expect in the arena? Obviously, you guys are a very stable club, like you said. You come in with a great history, but what can fans see on the field this season? How's the team looking?
Yeah, I mean, I think we look good. Last year we won the conference, made it to the Eastern Conference Final, got swept by an experienced Baltimore team. I think you can expect more of the same. Winning that conference is the goal. Making it to that final is expectation, and winning it is the expectation. So I think it's going to be more of the same. Now we just have to figure out what's the little things that have to fix for us to those off, right? What can we do to win that series and win the next? So you can expect the same old, the traditional keeping the ball, possessing the ball, smart play, and then we got some young guys that are, got room to grow. And is how much do they grow? If they grow and figure out and start playing like vets, we're gonna. Right, but they always say it takes about 30 games or 3 years for you to really feel comfortable. A lot of it's like, hey, I should have done this, or I should have done this, and then once you get there and play those 30, 40 games, you're like, okay, well, no, I understand it. So once they get to that 30, 40 game mark, we're gonna be very dangerous, very dangerous.
It's nice because it feels, Will, sort of like a smaller club you guys are in as players. Because like I said before, it is a very niche league. It is a very niche style of ball. But like you said, after enough experience and after enough caps and enough time playing that style of football, I mean, there's got to be a great camaraderie. I mean, similar to hockey, yeah, there's bitter rivals and there's guys who, after the game ends, you're like, get away from me. But there's got to be a pretty good camaraderie among the team and among the league, I'd feel like, isn't there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the one thing with the fans that they love is we're accessible, whether that's good or bad, right? And they can communicate with us, and I've been invited to holiday dinners, and I've attended birthdays and stuff like that. So the whole league in itself, a lot of us are celebrating the league, right? And also like we're minor league athletes, we get paid, we're not millionaires. So we understand that, right? Like we don't think we're bigger than what we are. At the end of the day, we're all lucky to pay our bills playing the sport. And for all of us, I think we're just, once that game ends, we all have a immense respect for each other for what we do. Because we all have to sacrifice a lot. We could all be doing a bunch of other things, not putting our bodies through stuff like this. We all get it.
Well, we're minor league podcasters who have taken crazy flights with little leg room and crashed on couches, and I think we actually understand the grind a little bit more. Definitely not the physicality of it. I drink a little bit too much beer and don't probably eat as well as you do, but I mean, it was great to have you. It was awesome.
Thanks for joining.
Hopefully a few more people can tune into games and everything, and we'll certainly be streaming. So where can we watch games this season if we want to check out more highlights?
I think they're on Twitch.
Okay.
You just go MASL_soccer. I think there's like 4 or 5 channels that you can watch. They're free for what I know. I think the reruns you have to subscribe, but the live games are free. And you can just watch them. If you're in those cities, you can check them out. You go to, like in the city, they do well. They'll get about 4,000 or 5,000 people. We'll get between 4,000 to 5,000 people. Utica, or same with Baltimore. You go to those games, you're like, well, this is a lot different, and it's exciting and stuff like that. So my challenge to an outdoor listener is, go check out a game, and who knows, you may love it, you may hate it, and sorry, no refunds, but experience, right?
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Will Banahene, a goalkeeper for the Milwaukee Wave, thank you again for joining us. It was awesome talking to you, and we will see you out there this season. Kick some more ass, okay?
Hey, thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Cheers.